Good evening, good evening. Yes, so it's 8 o'clock, it's a Sunday night, and yes, we're looking at the way to show Jesus is God. And I really am amped up to do this one today. So, my friends, I really hope you are having a good week, and let's jump in, let's enjoy ourselves as we go forward. So, the verse we were looking at, or the concept we were looking at, we did, as you would know, all the names of God. Now we're looking at attributes ascribed to Jesus Christ. But we actually also look at witnesses, how the people witnessed or testified about Jesus being God. So let's look at John 5, verse 19. So before we go to the slide, let me just pull up the Bible verse. And let's go to John 5:19, which reads, and you can see there the authority of the Son. So Jesus said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, the Son can do nothing on his own accord, but only what he sees the Father doing. For whatever the Father does, that the Son does likewise. Now, in my personal opinion, at the moment, a person that denies the Trinity brings up the first section, I know they are becoming desperate. It's just my personal experience when I witness to people, when they bring up this verse, they get desperate. Because if you look at the context, you will see this does not. The fact that it says the Son can do nothing in his own accord, in the context, you will see that it doesn't take away of his divinity in the slightest. So let's look at it a bit. Firstly, let's put it a bit differently. If I were to be a prophet, or I were to be a human speaking to you, and I say, you know what, whatever you see God doing, I can do the same. You would think I'm mad. At best, you'll think I've gone bonkers. But that would be utter blasphemy for a man, a prophet, to actually go and say, but listen, whatever you see God doing, I can do likewise. You see him make out of nothing something, I do likewise. And I'm sorry to say this, but that is actually a very prominent teaching that you have in, especially the prosperity teaching. Name it and claim it, grab it and blab it. You create your own destiny. You speak life where there's no life. You. That, I'm sorry, in my view, can actually become so intense that it becomes a form of blasphemy. So let's delve into this verse a little bit. Let's look, so I've read you number 19, but verse 19 is actually doubling down on what Jesus said in verse 17. Yes, he's actually confirming what he said in verse 17. So let's just back up a little bit. And in my experience again, people that come to John 5 and they use that one sentence, it's like they ignore everything that comes before and everything that comes after, and they just have that one statement of Jesus, the Son can do nothing on his own accord. So let me read for you. So here you see verse 16. And this was why the Jews were persecuting Jesus, because he was doing these things on the Sabbath. But Jesus answered them, my Father is working until now, and I am working. Now, we don't have to wonder what that meant. Now, God upholds the universe. So he works on the Sabbath. So the fact that God works on the Sabbath, he can't stop. The God that doesn't slumber or sleep. The God that protects day and night, Isaiah says. He always is there. Now, if you continue that thought, you will see, going to verse 18, John, as a witness, he is testifying and he gives us an inspired interpretation. And he says in verse 18, this is why the Jews were seeking all the more to kill him. Because not only was he breaking the Sabbath, but he was calling God his own Father, making himself equal with God. So I'm sorry to say this, but if I bring, I'm in this text, and a Muslim brother would like to bring up this text to say, but Jesus said he can do nothing on his own accord, I will say, okay, just read 2 verses back. Is God actually Jesus' Father? Yes or no? Because in the Muslim theology, God can't be a father. But let's go stay on point. John is very clear. He's testifying for us. This is why they were trying to kill him, because he's making himself equal with God. Philippians 2 says the same thing. He did not esteem being equal with God as something to be grasped, but he laid down and became a human being. Now, go down to verse 21. For the Father raised the dead and gives them life, so also the Son gives life to whom he will. Now, let's jump quickly to Deuteronomy 32:39. By this time, I hope you know this verse almost by heart, if you are following the series. See now that I, even I am he, and there is no God beside me. I will kill and I make alive. I wound and I heal, and there is none that can deliver out of my hand. So unfortunately, I'm not displaying it on the right screen. Apologies for that. Let me just bring it onto the right screen. I'm speaking about John 5. I never brought it on the screen. I'm so sorry for that. So there's John 5. And let's go to Deuteronomy 32. I'm so sorry. There you see. See now, even I kill and I make alive. So what Jesus is doing in verse 21, as a father raises the dead, referring to God giving life, so also the Son gives life to him whoever he will. Now, if you follow the series, you would know about John 11, John 10, where we've already dealt with Jesus saying, I give eternal life, and all those nice verses. But let me just proceed a little bit deeper. This seems very shallow, but let's actually delve into what Jesus is saying there. God the Father created. No one will dispute that. No one will. But John 1:3 and Colossians actually teaches us that this is the view from the apostles. Jesus also created, and God the Father testifies about it itself. So let's look at John 1, verse 3. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. No, the theory that says Jesus was made and then he made everything. So there's a theory that said when God said, let there be light, he made Jesus, because Jesus is called the light of men. For example, here you can see light of men in verse 4. So they will say, but God created Jesus, and Jesus is the light that was created there, and from there everything else was made. But that is simply not true, because here it said, everything that was made through Christ. So in other words, if Jesus is made, then he falls outside of the all things here. But let's go to Colossians 1, verse 16. For by him all things were created. What is all things? All things in heaven, all things on earth, all things visible, all things invisible, whether thrones, or dominions, or rulers, or authorities. All things were created through him and for him. So that's awesome. I absolutely love that. So if you combine the aspects here, we find in John 5:19, everything that I see the Father do, I do likewise. God created, Jesus created likewise. And God the Father, as I said in Hebrew, actually testifies about it. But let's think about it a little bit deeper. So we are saying that Jesus is the creator here. We can say that he does all the things the Father does. But just a sideline question. But how is it now that God the Father is said to be the creator, and Jesus said to be the creator, but now we find the Old Testament saying everything that was made is by Christ or through Christ. Does that not exclude the Father? So let me just show you Hebrews quickly. Then I'll answer that question. And here the Father is speaking. If you were wondering, yes, it's the Father speaking. And now because he's saying, to whom of which did God ever say? So it's God speaking. Then he says that sentence here, and he goes on, and then he continues to this one here, verse 10. And you, Lord, laid the foundation of the earth in the beginning, and the heavens are the work of your hands. So even God himself testified of the Son being Lord, number one, and being the Creator. So God the Father is actually testifying to it, additionally to the two apostles, John and Peter. John and Paul, excuse me. Well, to answer the question I posed, but how can both be the Creator? Have you ever wondered, the question is, that I will ask is, when God said, let there be, who is he speaking to? Have you ever wondered about that? Who is he speaking to? Just for example, if you think of God is love, how can God be love if he's alone? He's exemplifying love, and he's receiving love because they are three persons that love each other. And that is why God is love, perfect love within the three persons in the Godhead. But let me show you Psalm 148. Now, I only learned about this recently, and then I thought I was a very clever son, and I just checked a bit in history, and I saw, but I'm not the first one to make this connection. You have Justin Martyr making the connection. You have many other church fathers making that connection. They are some clever cookies to make this connection, but just reading the text, they made these connections. I mean, we have word searches, and we have ChatGPT, and we have articles being written and sermons being made on YouTube, and many of us don't even know about this, but people back then, where they struggled to get a copy of the Bible in their language, were able to see these things. So here's Psalm 148, verse 5. Let them praise the name of the Lord, for he commanded and they were created. Where did God command? Here we see God commanding. Genesis 1 verse 3. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. In other words, he's commanding and it's made. So who is doing the work there? If it's not God commanded himself and then God made. No, God commanded and it was made. And they were created. My view that I put forward is to say that God commanded and the Son created. They are working in tandem. That's why Jesus can say, the Father and I are one. But I want to push this even a bit more deep. You cannot just say that Jesus is a creator and leave it there and not conclude that he's God. Because there's an aspect in Isaiah 42 that's crucial. So you cannot say this without saying he's God. And I will prove it to you now. Let's look at Isaiah 42. So when I jump to Isaiah 42, let me show you. Let's start at verse 1. So you will actually see, behold, my servant, whom I uphold, my chosen, in whom my soul delights. I've put my spirit upon him, and he will bring forth justice to the nations. Now this actually, you can see this also in, for example, your, excuse me, in the same Isaiah 11, the very same situation is happening there. Let me show you Isaiah 11. There shall come forth a shoot from the stump of Jesse, and a branch from his roots shall bear fruit, and the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him. One day I'll show you a connection between Isaiah 11 and the menorah that I think is quite awesome, but I don't want to spend too much time on side missions. So here you see the servant, and you'll see a bruised reed he will not break, and a faintly burning wick he will not quench. In Matthew, this is said to be fulfilled. This was fulfilled by the prophet Isaiah in Jesus Christ. So here, Matthew is testifying this referred to Jesus Christ. All right, now let me walk you back to my thesis that I said you cannot say Jesus was involved in creation without making him a false deity or saying he's a true God. You have a choice. Either you make him a Baal, a false deity, or you make him part of the Trinity. And let me show you why I'm saying this. So, as I put here in my slides, what is the relevance of this to what we are speaking about? If we look at Isaiah 42, let me show you verse 6. I am the Lord, I have called you righteous, I will take you by the hand and keep you. I will give you a covenant and a light of the nations. So he's speaking there to his, excuse me, to his people. Now, you can see here, that is the Lord speaking here is the person that is the, the Creator. But look at verse 8. I am the Lord, that is my name. My glory I give to no other, nor my praise to carved idols. God does not share his glory and his honor. He does not share that. So the fact that you can see him sharing this with Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is sharing in the judgment. He's doing the judgment. He's sharing creation. He's doing the creation. Can you see that all the works that God the Father does, Christ does likewise? Now, how can you say Jesus can be not God when he's sharing in creation? He's sharing in the honor of God. He's sharing in the glory of God. And let's take this back. Look at verse 23 of John 5. Let me take you there. So here, Jesus is continuing his discourse and he's saying, so here, number one, the Father judges no one, but he's given all judgment to the Son. There's a work the Father does that is now given to the Son. The Son's doing that now. That all may honor the Son just as they honor the Father. Whoever does not honor the Son does not honor the Father who sent him. So in other words, fathers, glorify the Son as you glorify the Father. Honor the Son as you honor the Father. There you see a violation of Isaiah 42 unless Jesus is God. I believe Jesus is God. So it's not a violation of Isaiah 42. Let me continue. Apologies for that. I wanted to mention one last thing before I wrap this up and conclude. This is a personal thing, and I'm always, if you disagree with me, please leave a comment, reach out to me, and I will gladly speak about this. But I've always had this gripe against the Roman Catholic Church, where they've ascribed a deity-like characteristics to Mary and the saints. For example, if you just, the Hail Mary, you pray to Mary. Let's say around the world at the same time, 2 million Catholics pray to Mary. How can Mary hear 2 million Catholics across the entire world in different languages, and she can hear all of them and communicate that to Jesus Christ or to the Father? That takes away, in my view, from the deity of Christ. It diminishes the power of things like this to say, the work God does, I do likewise. Listening to prayer, listening to millions of prayer at the same time. What it's saying in John 14, whatever you ask, I will do. In other words, I hear your prayer and I answer it. Millions at a time. There's 2 billion Christians on the earth. So he can hear millions of prayers at the same time. That is a work that the Father is doing, that Christ is doing. It's not given to a mere person. And to say, yeah, but when Mary is ascended, God can give her that power. Why would he? There is a mediator. There's one mediator between God and man, the man Jesus Christ. Why would he give another mediator, give another person that, if Jesus Christ is enough? So that's just a personal gripe. And please, if you disagree with me, I'm all ears. But let me just conclude and tie us up in a nice bow for us. What have we learned? So we can conclude, John testified that the Jews and John understood Jesus was saying he is equal with God. Paul also testified this in Philippians 2. The Old Testament said God don't share his glory with another. Jesus said to honor him the same way you would the Father, thus making him God. Number 3, God never stops working. So on the Sabbath he's working as he has to sustain the universe. God would heal on the Sabbath without any problem. And no one would blame God for healing on the Sabbath. Jesus said he can do the same. And why? I would add because he's the Lord of the Sabbath. Now there's 3 verses there. Let's just look at Matthew quickly. Matthew 12 verse 8. For the Son of Man is the Lord of the Sabbath. That is why, he's as God the Father is Lord of the Sabbath, he made Sabbath, he made the law that gave the Sabbath, same with Christ. And lastly, Jesus said he can do what he sees his Father does. We can see God do many things, but we can't do it. So yes, my friends, I hope that has blessed you. I hope you have a wonderful week, and thank you for taking about 22 minutes out of your day to listen to a humble servant like me. I hope I've blessed you, and yes, if you have any thoughts or comments, leave it below. Love you in Christ.